All right, welcome everybody to MVP Office Hours. My name is Jared Kingston. I'm a Salesforce MVP and solution engineer with Seven Summits. I'm joined today by one of my fearless co-leaders, Dale Ziegler. Dale, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Jared. Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dale Ziegler, MVP, Salesforce Practice Lead for the Claris Group in Kansas City. And thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Yeah, so basically we're running MVP Office Hours from Kansas City today. That's where Dale and I both are. So not together, just we're collectively doing it separately. So
opposite corners of the metro, opposite corners.
That's true. So we pretty much have it covered. All right, and we also are helped out tremendously by Jackie Travieso, who is where's Jackie? Yes, Jackie is taking the month off and enjoying some downtime, just grazing with the deer. Apparently, that's a huge antlers on that deer. I don't know what kind of deer that is.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have those in our parts, really, at least not that I see often. That's awesome. So that's where Jackie is, and she helped us out a lot. So one of the things we always like to touch on when we start MVP Office Hours is all the events that are coming up. We have a ton of Dream-ins, Midwest Dream-in just recently happened. We also have several others coming up. I didn't even know that there was a daydreaming one. That one sounds great. Like, I guess you just go and you just do a lot of daydreaming, which is awesome. No, that's a newer one I haven't heard of, but got Denver coming up. If you can get down to Sydney, it's you better get on it. But Sydney's awesome, and Down Under would be a lot of fun. But several of those coming up here, definitely look at trying to make those, as they're super great events and really helpful for networking and just learning more.
And important to call out here that with Denver, it's Daydreamin' followed immediately by Witness Success, if you are able to actually make both.
There you go. There you go. All right. So moving on here, we covered where Jackie is. So just to, if you're new or if you've been on the call, just a refresher here. We hold this every, first and third Friday of every month, or at least we try to. Sometimes we'll flex those dates. So our next call is going to be on August 3rd. The registration link there is something you can bookmark. That's never going to change. We're going to keep that the same, so it's easy for you to register for each meeting. This call is really just an open Q&A discussion, so kind of consider it like Answers Live almost, where we're going to try to give you approach pointers, resources to what you're looking to solve. And if we can, we'll give you screen sharing, right? So you can walk us through what you're doing. And, we always encourage everyone to share your experience, right? Dale and I are MVPs. I think we may have some other MVPs on the call. But just because you're not an MVP doesn't mean you don't have experience that can help. So certainly chime in if it's something you've worked on before or ran into before. We're here to help get each other out. So because of all that, right, we just ask you to mute your lines if you're not speaking, so that way we can hear the Q&A clearly. And if you have a question, you can either raise your hand in the chat, or if there's some downtime, we'll just ask people to speak up and announce yourself, so we can kind of easily put the voice with the name. And we're going to record this. As I said, it's recording right now. We'll post it out to post a link out to the community, out to our Twitter account, which is just at MVP Office Hours. And we'll post, if you have any resources that you want to post, we'll also post in the chat, and then we're going to compile. You'll see us compiling those as we go, and we'll share those out as well. So let's see, I forget what the next slide is. Okay, yeah, that's right. So we have a site for you. MVPOfficeHours.info has all the information you need of all the MVP Office Hours groups, including this US-based one. We have one that goes on regularly in EMEA. For Portuguese, we have a students one. We have several others that they're getting going. So APAC. So definitely check that out there. We added some new things to the site this week. So if you want to share the page and social media, you can do that. Or it also has the last 3 videos are sessions from the US that have been posted to YouTube on our YouTube channel. So definitely check that out. You can also subscribe to our email list there, right? So with the new GDPR stuff, we updated that a bit. So you can know that we're, keeping your information safe and whatnot. So definitely check that out. You can sign up for, the email list for any one of the MVP Office Hours groups. So if you want to be notified of new sessions, sign up on that site and we'll send you an email with the registration so you don't have to remember. All right. I think that was my spiel. That gives us about 40 minutes or 50 minutes to get rolling here. So as always, who wants to kick us off with the first call? Jen. She was the first participant on and first raising the hand. I like that. So go ahead, Jen.
Hi, thank you for taking my question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So
you're good.
we just implemented Lightning for Outlook, and from Outlook I can get to the homepage of Salesforce. It works for some of my users. Some of my users get a SAML 2.0 error. And I don't know, I'm like, where is that coming from? When I looked at the logins at Salesforce, I see success. So I don't know what that, just point me to the right direction. It's probably something in our browser, but if anybody has any experience with that and how they resolved it, that would be very helpful.
That's a good question. Any users of
when you say you're using Outlook Salesforce, are you using client or are you using Office 365 web version?
365. Oh, do you want me to share my screen? I think it's 365. Oh no, it's not the web version. It's not the web version.
So if you're using client and Outlook syncing with Salesforce, I will tell you that this is a host of bucket of problems.
Okay.
To begin with, so you will have we have hit a lot of issues and a lot of errors and a lot of syncing problems for about 600 reps. We switched everybody to 365. It works much better. That's been experience.
Okay. Yeah, it works on mine like seamlessly. When I click on show the Salesforce homepage, it opens up Salesforce and I'm on SSO, so it works perfectly. For some of my users, it does as well, but for some, they get the SAML 2.0 error.
Hi,
The request is not a valid SAML 2 protocol message.
Hi, this is Phyllis Bierman from Apex. We're not having that. We're not having that exact error, and I don't know if this will help. But I contacted the Premier Success team, and they told me that there are some connectivity issues with Lightning for Outlook and Salesforce. And the first thing they recommended was, for me at least, was to disconnect them within Salesforce from Lightning and have them log in. We're having intermittent problems. We're not having all the time problems. So I don't know if that will help, but it might be worth a try.
Okay. Thank you, Phyllis.
Yeah, you also
Thank you.
By the way, my name is Igor, and if you're having an issue with SAML on your client, on an email client from Outlook, there you need to make sure, or you have to at least validate those users where the computers are logged in and how the systems are authenticated. Because when you are in the browser and you're logged in, let's say with Active Directory, and your Salesforce is authenticated through the Active Directory, then your Outlook would work seamlessly because you would be available in that same environment. But when you're talking about different programs running on, let's say, Windows machine, then all bets are off, and you could be running into technical networking issues. You could be running into firewall issues. There could be a host of different problems that your users would be hitting. So that's something to kind of look into.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so the next question we have here is from Rob. Rob says, Rob, you say you're planning to enable My Domain as the My Domain feature as a part of your Lightning migration prep, and you're looking for any best practices and/or gotchas. I know. I would say I don't necessarily have anything outside of this link. I'm going to drop in the chat that Salesforce provides. And I think the main thing, right, is checking integrations, checking email templates, any Visualforce, zones for communities. Things like that, right, where there's the potential for you to, anywhere you could potentially, formula fields, right, where you could have hard-coded URLs.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you check those areas. And the nice thing is, right, is when you go through the enablement process, is you can enable it for yourself and to test, right? So you can go log in through My Domain and test your all the functionality that could potentially break within there. So
Jared, is that test on a sandbox?
No, it actually is just behind the scenes on the
it's more like a ping test that you would do from a command line. Okay.
No. So, whenever you go to My Domain within setup, I was just there. I have it enabled in my org, but essentially once you select your domain, right, then you can, once you reserve your domain, then you can actually start testing your domain. And all that really means is that you're now logging in through that domain as opposed to login.salesforce.com. So, yeah, from there, then you could go in and actually, test things within the system and make sure everything's working. Normally for me, like I haven't run into many problems, but certainly if your org has been around for quite some time, you're going to want to check all those areas I talked about before that Salesforce lists out as well. And there's some good, like I said, that link has some really good stuff around.
One really quick thing that I was forced to do a couple years ago when I had an org that I knew was going to be switching pods. We went from like NA8 to NA28. Was I can't find it on Workbench, but if you go into Data Loader and export all your data from the custom button or link object, that will at least get you all your buttons or links to then go search for any other hard-coded references if they don't call that out in this document. But that's a good place to start.
Cool. Thanks.
You can also use Eclipse if you have Eclipse installed. Go to the centralmost point of your org, Control H, and again search throughout for any hard-coded link references, and you can find those there too.
Yeah, and it looks like Sarah posted a link with kind of some step-by-step instructions on how to do that if you want to go or something similar to what Dale's doing there. Yeah, and then...
And nice explanation by Igor, too. Thanks.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And I think, and Phyllis, you had a question there, and you saw, hopefully you saw in the chat, what are the benefits of My Domain? Well, as several have said here, right? Just in order to create custom Lightning pages, you're going to need that. You're going to have to enable that. It also is required for SSO and some other features as well. So, but in general, it's a better way to customize your user's experience from a login standpoint. Now, if you're using SSO, that may not necessarily matter as much, right? If they're automatically being logged into the application. But if you're going to, your company's name .salesforce or .my.salesforce.com, right? It gives a little bit more personalized experience. You can put your logo and some coloring behind it. So it just feels more like your company's application as opposed to maybe just Salesforce, if you will.
That's good stuff. Thanks very much, Jared.
I will say one other thing from a user experience standpoint is if you're in a company that has multiple orgs, or if you're a consultant where you obviously are working with multiple orgs, you have to remember that when you log out of an org, you're not going to get redirected back to login.salesforce.com. You're going to end up right back on that My Domain. And there it does actually start to get specific of which org you're trying to log into. So it's a gotcha to be aware of when you go through user training. If you're in that scenario that you're trying to switch orgs, you got to remember that.
Okay. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
that's a good point. Yeah. And once you get that, you'll see within My Domain, like once you get it to the point of where everything's ready and you can deploy to your users, you can still have it deployed to users and still allow your users to log in from login.salesforce.com.
Yeah, I saw that. You can have a message and tell them, that this is going to be going away and, please update your bookmarks, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can go into, My Domain settings and completely prevent them and make them go to your domain to log in.
Right. Like the night before we pull the switch on Lex. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm set. Big help.
Awesome. All right. All right. So who wants to go next?
One quick thing while we...
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Say, Jen, you had another question, and Krista will come to you right after Jen.
Oh, you can have Krista go first because I already asked. I can wait for someone else.
Cool. Krista.
Okay.
Krista, go for it then.
Hello, this is Krista. I just wanted to know if anyone has any recommendations for either ways to use, workflows or process builder, or even apps for managing call frequency for my sales users. Basically, wanting to determine this account, I want to call on them this often, and then it triggering like a reminder of follow-up.
So what you're saying is you want them to record the call, and then you want to trigger essentially another task or reminder for them to call in, say, a week. Yeah.
So kind of to set like a frequency. So to maybe have like a pick list of, weekly, monthly, quarterly, something like that. And then based on the frequency that they determine, they would get reminders when they're approaching kind of that interval.
So theoretically, I'm going to put a big fat asterisk on the word theoretically. You would be able to put that frequency indicator on like the account object or whatever. And then at the completion of a task that is perhaps an actual call, or if it's an event, closing that task or event would then be able to say, okay, my parent record is this account and they want to call every 7 days, whatever. process builder creates a task for 7 days from current date to then say, okay, you're going to need to make a call in 7 days. Activities are super weird about playing friendly with parent objects because it's not a specific reference. It's not an object or a reference to a specific object. It's a who ID and a what ID. So being able to borrow from those parent values does get a little tricky. There's ways,
Well,
I mean, I'm sure. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the other thing you could do, and I don't know if you've tried this, is, and I was just logging into an org to make sure, because it's, just to make sure I speak to it correctly, but is utilizing recurring tasks, the recurring task functionality that's built into activities. Because that allows you, and I think I have it turned on as org, so give me a second. Because that allows, now the rep has to set it, right? Like, and that's what you're saying, you want to be able to allow the rep to kind of set it, you know, themselves. So you can create, so there's recurring tasks where you can create a recurrence. So it creates that recurring series of tasks, and you can say, hey, I want you to create this, you know, just like any recurring thing. I want you to create it weekly, and have it, you know, come to me every Monday, and I want it to, you know, go for all the time. And you can also use that reminder. Now, the kicker is, right, with that reminder, it's just like normal tasks, right? You've got to be within the application, but if they're driven off their task list, then that would certainly help. Otherwise, yeah, you'd have to throw in some workflow there, maybe some time-based workflow.
Yeah, and kind of
Even then,
where I was getting stuck was like if I was using something that would be based off of last activity date, I wouldn't want it to be like, I don't know if there's a way to specify the type of activity date, because there could be activity under that account that belongs to customer service and isn't necessarily like sales activity, but it's impacting that last activity date field.
I see what you're saying. So yeah, the recurring date, sorry, yeah, just going to say this real quick. Yeah, the recurring series of tasks would only really be if you're like, hey, I want to call every Monday. I want to call this customer every Monday, right? At 8 a.m. or whatever. So that's really what you use that for. Yeah, it's not going to, I have to test it. I don't know if it will update the additional tasks if you update the date of the task.
I mean, I think if I hear what you're saying correctly, you're probably dipping into Flow, which is a little bit more work, but definitely it opens the playground up much wider, because then you can, if you're wanting to base your frequency on a certain type of task, or multiple types of tasks have different frequencies or whatever, Flow then opens up the ability to actually go hone in on a specific set of criteria that's based on the account or based on the contact or whatever. You just have to have your process mapped out to then build the flow appropriately, but you can hit those touch points and actually get closer to your target outcome of, for a cold call that you want to call, let's say every 10 days for ABC account, you can actually go isolate that criteria and then create a new task 10 days after whatever date you specify to pivot off of.
Yeah, I think I heard some interesting ideas. One thing I want to caution about recurring tasks: if you're using in your org any kind of apps that do mass ownership reassignment on opportunities or accounts or whatever, you're going to hit problems, and you're going to have to delete or do something with those tasks that are recurring to be able to do those reassignments. That's just a caveat of Salesforce.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Igor.
We have, like in my case, we actually have automations that do these tasks automatically for reps. but we also have reps manually do them. So it's really how your organization runs. Reps would, let's say, make a call, they make a sales call, they make a support call, and they'll say, well, I need to follow up with this, let me make a reminder. So the person themselves is basically a human activity that they will just add an additional task for themselves as a reminder tomorrow or next week, let me call him on Tuesday at 9 a.m. or whatever. And that's kind of a standard operating procedures that they follow. And then there's also an automations which you could run with flows or potentially combinations of flows and workflows. Obviously, if you have developers, Apex triggers, which we use to be able to build those tasks automatically based on some specific criteria. So that's where you would get into fairly complex automation processes to be able to determine when you want to kind of schedule these tasks for these users after they completed their whatever they're working on.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was gonna be my thought. Is that I think if you can nail down the, when to trigger the automation piece, right? Like who's doing what within the application and it meets this criteria, right? Then yeah, I think it's, as Igor said, right? You should, and Dale said, you should be able to do that through more declaratively through Flow, or if you have developers, you could do it through Apex. But yeah, I think, and you could then look at the last activity date and schedule it based upon that, or based upon, when that task is logged, right? So if I log it today and you say, hey, schedule another task for, a week out or whatever. So, yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And as
right.
and Chris, there's one more thing to close that up. As you're diving down that path, if you have any questions or run into any walls or anything, you can always ping us on the community or Twitter or whatever. I'm more than happy to help you out along the way.
Thank you. This was helpful to kind of just get an idea of, because I was thinking maybe like a workflow, but then Flow sounds like it would be, you'd be able to, I guess, be a little more specific with your criteria. So I'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jen, you want to go ahead and with your question?
Yeah, I had a Flow question. So I wonder, do you need me, is it easier maybe to share my screen?
Yeah, I'm clicking over there.
Okay.
You should be good now.
Okay. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you all see my screen? So I'm using orders. Well, no, I'm implementing orders, and in our account we have what we call client locations, and I want to pull these client locations into orders. So I created a button, and I used Flow for that. But I was wondering, right now it's going through all my client locations and pulling them into the order. But I wanted to actually show a screen where the users can select which one, like there's a checkbox for each client location, and they check which one they would add. And then there's also the option to add all. Is that possible in Flow using screens?
I don't believe, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's a multi-select checkbox.
There is.
There is? Okay.
Yes. I actually, sorry, let me,
yeah.
Gosh.
I'm going to back up off this one if you know.
Sorry, yeah, no, now I'm trying to remember. I actually just did this for a customer, and I think I got it from Rakesh, I believe, is where I got the kind of the thought. So let me actually see if I can.
Would you be able to share like the steps?
Well, I think you should be able to do this with the Flow, but there has to be a visual flow with the screen, and then that's where you could make selections and instead of automatically pulling everything in.
Yeah, I wondered if anybody's willing to share like even basic steps. 'Cause I've done flows, but not the visual where the screen element comes in. And I've tried it, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's yeah.
Okay.
So like this one, I did
Sorry,
this, and it actually pulls all the locations from the account and puts it in here, so it works. I know it works, but I'm like, I need that element where I'm letting them select.
Right. And Sarah, thank you, Sarah, just posted in the chat. Trouble I've run into with multi-select screen inputs and flow is that the output variable is concatenated with semicolons, which can be tricky when trying to parse out later. Yeah, this is just Salesforce 101. If you see the words multi-select, run. But anyway, that's just me.
Yeah, we don't want multi-select.
Well, multi-select is a tricky business in declarative type of development. It is relatively simple to deal with in Apex or JavaScript, for example, in a programming language, but that requires obviously hands-down development. And at that point, you just as well build a Lightning component or the force page component that could do the selection for you as well. That would be my choice to go for. Because then I would be able to control all these inputs and outputs much better. And also if I need parsing as a result of some Salesforcean outputs messing things up, I could easily cut my way out of the paper bag.
I think there.
Yeah, so I pasted a link into the chat there, and I was trying to find, there's another one that I looked at too.
I'm bringing it in.
Yeah, because this one, he has this as a managed package just to kind of show you how it works. Let's see if this one is the same thing. But I mean, it's actually, once I got through it, it was actually pretty, simple in that if you just kind of follow that post, because really all it's doing, right, is in your button, you're passing in this case, your account ID, right? You're passing your account ID, and then you're going to go find in your flow, you're going to go find all those location records. And then you're going to
display them on the screen, right, with a multi-select?
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to use a dynamic choice to give them that dynamic choice of records based upon that account ID. Yeah. And then based upon what they select, then you're going to you actually use say you select it, and then you use a loop element to go extract those IDs one by one based upon if they were selected or not. So if it was selected, it essentially assigns data into an S-object collection variable. So, if you select one or if you select two, right, it's going to go through and compile all those for you. And then it goes and creates it accordingly. So, I actually took this and did it for a customer because it was not the same exact use case, but it was, hey, I want to go find all of the products that are associated to this account's opportunities that meet this criteria. And I want to be able to select them and, change them to a certain status. Yeah. And I want to be able to do maybe one or two, I want to be able to do one or multiples of them. So, and it worked really well. You could go through and select. The only thing that's kind of weird is that I didn't put in there, and I think Rakesh maybe mentions it, is that if there are none, like if for some reason there's none to select, like it just, it still takes you into the flow, and it just shows you a list of none. So you could certainly add that step in there, right? I think
you could do a decision.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, is his package though managed or unmanaged? If it's unmanaged, you can do that. If it's managed, you might be locked.
Well, that's what
yeah, if it's
what I
managed,
ended
you
up
can.
doing is I just recreated everything from scratch, just
Oh, okay.
following his blog essentially. And here's another, and it's mentioned in this at the top of this blog, but there's I think this was the original one he did around basically this concept was, what was this one? It was like adding a record to multiple chatter groups or something like that. So it's the same concept, right? Being able to select multiple things and go in there. But yeah, he calls out that, you know, after I went through this, I thought, you know, probably could go back and do this. So
I think there is an unmanaged package by David Litton. I'll try to find the link and put it in chat. I know I have it installed, so.
If it's not Rakesh, David is not far behind.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Thank
yeah, I
you.
couldn't remember because I know I looked at Rakesh's and then I looked at someone else's and it was probably David's.
Which feels like that time of the call to call out the Salesforce Automation Hour group. That is usually right after
yes.
that.
Oh, is that in the automation hour? Okay.
Yeah, those guys are on there. So
Okay.
Sarah posted that. Is that David? Hold on. We have another link in the chat. Yep.
Yeah, I tried.
Look at that, even
playing
calling out the
around
mascots.
I tried playing around with it and then gave up because I was like, multi-select check pick list, no thank you.
yeah, don't tell Steve now. That's
Yeah.
hopefully he doesn't. If he listens to this recording, we're all screwed.
And side story, in the last week, I've watched both the 2003 and 2008 versions of the Hulk movies with my son, with my 12-year-old. I'm picturing Steve Moe, like his eyes going green and starting to split all his clothes. Like he just telepathically knows that this conversation is happening.
Thank you.
Igor posted a link as well that I'll put out here. This one actually from Salesforce, from a developer. The limitations, always good to know.
Yep.
Jared, we have a lot of resources to post after this. This is good.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I like it. All right, Nicole, thank you for waiting.
Sure. Hi, this is Nicole. So we have a Service Cloud community where we allow our users to add additional community members under their account. And ideally, in a perfect world, we would allow them to also manage those users who are no longer with their organization. There are obvious risks and problems with that because we can't allow them to delete a contact that's in the system that's tied to who knows what, right? So we've thought of several different types of things that we could do, such as maybe adding a checkbox to flag that particular user that they want removed that pushes some sort of automation to alert someone to go manually do it. But we're concerned because the volume would be pretty great. Is there anything that you guys can recommend, maybe something to do to make this a little easier and less manual as far as maybe reparenting those contacts or some other way to allow those people to remove them from the account?
Well, are you creating users on the community themselves? Well, basically users in the community creating other users in that
Yes.
community.
Yes, they do.
And they're activating them, right? So you have active
Correct.
users. So while you have an active user linked to a community contact, you will never be able to remove that contact or its account, or if it's a
Right.
personal account, they're going to be always linked. So the only way to do that is that's an administrative feature that you have to actually go and deactivate the user from. I don't know if that is actually even available on the API side. I know that from the admin side, you can deactivate the user. Only then you can reparent or change any kind of relationships and delete accounts or contacts. But while the user is, in fact, I know for sure now that, now I remember, you can't even, if you disable the user with an API, let's say I went ahead and flipped the switch on the user, that does not allow me to change anything on the contact. So it is really an admin feature from the UI at this point to be able to delink that user, deactivate it, and then you can allow to basically, do kind of reparenting. Otherwise, the system will stop you from doing any of that for active users.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, who's next?
Jen, go for it.
I have so many questions. Sorry. Does anybody have any experience with sorry, with renewals, using Opportunity for renewals? I'm using Opportunities right now for new sale and upsells, and I want to roll it out to include renewals as well. And I just wondered if anybody has any experience with that, like how you handled it. It's more of a process. I know how it's going to look in Salesforce, but it's just I'm going to have a renewal and an upsell at the same time, and how people handle that process-wise.
Are you using CPQ at all, or just native?
Opportunity and orders.
So this is Jared. I can tell you what I've done in the past for a couple different customers, pretty similar. Is essentially depending upon your workflow, right? If what I've done is basically put an option there, because these customers had the scenario where maybe not every opportunity needed a renewal generated, or there wasn't the possibility for that. So yeah, if they either had the criteria that we could figure that out systematically, or if they didn't, we would just add an option there. But in general, for those opportunities that meet renewal criteria, whenever they go closed won, we're using a flow, process builder and flow to go essentially clone that opportunity and then update it with, a due date or a close date, a potential close date. Sorry, my son is chiming in. But basically, he thinks he's a flow expert already. But essentially it goes and clones that opportunity. And if you have products, it clones the products as well. And then puts the close date, names it accordingly, puts the close date out, accordingly, so that then you can track that renewal opportunity through opportunity forecasting, right? So you can say, okay, now I know I have X number of renewals out there that I need to close. So, and that works, I've done that at several different places, and it works pretty well. That was another one. I have to give a shout out to Rakesh for that one as well, for his brains behind that.
Yeah, my thought was like I would have, because I already have new business and upsells, and I'm generating orders for those, and then I'll have a renewal that I can generate every year. but then those would also generate orders. I could potentially have 2 orders for one customer at the same time. One would be an upsell and one would be a renewal. And to me, I don't want to combine it. I want to call them out separately. But then when it goes to downstream to other systems, that's where I see the conflict happening, because I have on the other systems, there'd be one. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can expand that, right, to, additional objects that if you need to create them, you could certainly add those into the process. But it seems to work pretty well. And then obviously you control, when that actually happens via Process Builder.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Dale, do you have something you want to cover there within the group?
No, I have it. I'm working on a tweet right now. Hold on, with a picture of this. It'll be cute. Give me about 5 minutes. But no, wandering back over here, just to call it out in case anybody hasn't joined the group, or they can always post questions there, or whatever. But that is it's a place to put questions and collaborate.
Yeah. Oh, I see, Sarah, you got your hand raised. Go for it.
Awesome. I have a question about unlocking records that have been locked through an approval process. I don't have this set up yet, but we're thinking for opportunities once our accounting department has posted those to our QuickBooks, we want to lock the opportunity so it can't be changed. If there needs to be a change made, what's the best process for unlocking that opportunity?
After the approvals happened?
Yeah.
So others feel free to chime in, but really the best way, unless for some reason your approval process can be updated, is you can update your approval process to actually unlock the record at the end of the approval, even if it's approved.
Okay, so I guess the question is, we want it to be locked. We want it to be locked after the approval process, unless we find out later that there needs to be a change made. And I guess a system admin could change it, but if the person who finds it isn't a system admin, like finds a mistake that was made or something, is there another approval process that we could go through to unlock it? I guess would probably be the way to do that. Like basically, we don't want opportunities that have been, signed off by accounting to be changed unless there need to be, like, accounting says, oh, actually, we need to do a refund or something like that. It's been posted, but now we need to refund it. How do we unlock it after it's been locked by accounting is the sort of the big question.
Is it possible to put it through another approval process and unlock it there?
I guess
like have a button that say update or refund change, and then approval process, and that all that approval process does is unlock it.
Yeah, I guess so. So it takes approval to be locked and then unlocked as well. Okay.
Yeah, there's also, and maybe Igor, if you're still on, maybe, or and another person knows Apex as well. I know there's the option, right, to enable record locking and unlocking in Apex. So I would assume, right, that you could certainly, I would think maybe write some code. I don't know, Igor, what do you think? Could you write some Apex to, do some, button or something to have that record unlocked, essentially?
Yeah, you should be able to do that with Apex. Obviously that will depend on either, if people are in Lightning, I would say that building some kind of a simple Lightning component that has Apex code behind it. If you're still in Classic, then might still being able to leverage Lightning like within the Visualforce page. So you don't have to, if you transition into Lightning at some point, might as well start building those components, libraries yourself, and then have the developer wrap the component inside Visualforce so that they can actually start leveraging new technology. And then eventually, as you move on to Lightning pages, you can just simply drag and drop those components on the page instead of Visualforce.
Yeah, we're in Lightning, so can look into component. Thanks.
And I'll post Doug Ayers posted. It's only a little over a year old. A blog post. I was just looking at it. It kind of runs through the same scenario. I haven't fully read through it, but maybe something to check out. Looks like he ends up kind of using some validation to, instead of using just kind of skimming it. It looks like he's updated his approval process to technically unlock the record, but then update a field and use validation rules to lock the record. And so that would be another way around it. Otherwise, as Igor said, you need to use Apex.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, we probably have time for about one more question. Did anybody, I'll throw out a question. Did anybody on the call submit talks for or sessions for Dreamforce, whether admin or developer? You don't have to say where your session is. You, of course. Nice.
Actually, I'm glad you called us over to the Doug Ayers one. One of his validation rules having the dollar permission on it, because I actually submitted a talk on all the things you can do with $ functions.
I love dollar signs in a lot of ways. That's great. Are you going to be, did you propose of throwing out $1 bills, or are you going to have money there? It's fake money, right? Like Monopoly money.
Well, as
Sarah says, make it rain.
Right. Well, I called it the power of the almighty dollar, instead of the word dollar, it's the $. But it'll be, I made it a theater session, which is kind of already elbow to elbow. So that's a great idea, but the fire marshal might hate me if that actually happens. That might be the last time you see me at Dreamforce.
Nice. That's funny. All right, and Krista, you submitted one for admin. That's awesome. Nice. Great. Awesome. Well, hopefully
we'll know in 2 weeks. They're targeting August 4th as Announcements Day.
Yeah, awesome. No, that's great. All right, well, we got about 3 minutes left, so we'll go ahead and close it down. Appreciate it's been an awesome call. A lot of fun, a lot of cool things. Yeah, if you don't get selected, come. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a good point, Rob. Before I close it off, like if you submitted a talk to Dreamforce and for whatever reason it wasn't selected, or heck, if you were thinking about submitting and you got cold feet and didn't submit, those Dreamin' events that we covered at the beginning, submit those. Right, submit to those if you think those are ones you could make. And I don't necessarily know all your employers, but I know for mine, like if I got selected to talk at those, and usually they help out with costs and stuff like that. So and normally with those Dreamin' events, you're comped your pass for them, so it's normally just travel. So yeah, I mean, as Rob said, there's north, I think by Ned, that's Northeast Dreamin', I'm guessing, Rob. So any one of those Dreamin', right? Submit those.
So I'm gonna
talks.
Yeah. Well, so I'm gonna speak up as the content manager for Midwest Dreamin' that we had last week. We, the last couple of years, have had amazing content submitted that we saw in the summer at Midwest Dreamin', and then that got used as the polishing for same content at Dreamforce. Like, we on the community side at those events, we don't care if you submit it as your test run for something bigger. Please submit it. We want to see it because it's going to be awesome regardless. And if it doesn't get picked up at Dreamforce, yeah, like Jared said earlier, still do it at the Dreamin' because we know it's going to be solid. We love to have you submit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also throw out one last thing since we're right at 2. I'm going to speak for Dale, and I'll even speak for Jackie. Like, if you guys are thinking about a session and want to run it by somebody, or want thoughts or whatever, right? Like, we're certainly happy to help, right? And whatever way we can to get more of that good content out there, and hear from you guys. So, because all of us got something to share that can help each other. So, all right, awesome. Well, like I said, thanks again, everybody. This has been a really fun session. We'll post the recording out and the resources, and for your weekend entertainment. So, have a great weekend, and we will talk to you on the next office hours.